So a few weeks back, there was a discussion about the Packers on Get Up on ESPN. So I just want to play this short audio clip and then give my thoughts. So here we go.
Contract.
Well, so that was going to be my question. Is it the right time right now for them to give him the whatever the going rate is for the huge quarterbacks these days?
Greeny, I wouldn't let him leave the facility after that last playoff loss to San Francisco. I would have got an agreement done. I would have dated it after mid-May, and I would have gotten him done because the market's only going to go up. And if we were building a team in the NFL and you were drafting players today, we would all start with Patrick Mahomes. But after that, Jordan Love's in the conversation on who do you want to build around for the next 10 years. He's that good, that talented. And when you look at the depth of the skilled players that the Packers have, from Dobbs to Watson to Jaden Reed, 2 tight ends. They just got Josh Jacobs. They're going to draft a left tackle this year. Greedy, he is positioned to be one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in our sport for a long time.
Honestly, very hard to argue with. I agree with him 100%. I think that when you look at Jordan Love, the way he played last season, he deserves top 5 money. I believe he'll make over $50 million per year. And it seems that he'll probably get this contract sometime in early May because that whole year has to go by since he signed his extension last May. That's the rule. And so I fully 100% agree with that. And I think that, when you look at quarterbacks around the NFL, the landscape of the NFL, you look at last year, the NFC Championship, it's Jared Goff versus Brock Purdy. And I'd say Jordan Love is better than both of those guys. And outside of Patrick Mahomes, when you look at these quarterbacks, I do think that Jordan Love is right up there with all of them. And honestly, it's hard to argue with Love being, a top 5 quarterback with the way he played. The way he ended last season, he's a top 5 quarterback. And I think when you look at this Packers offense, he was talking about these young weapons here. The offense is pretty much going to be exactly the same as last year. The only difference when you look at starters is pretty much John Runyon Jr., right guard, no longer in Green Bay. Of course, we also lost David Bakhtiari, but he was not really playing at all. So that doesn't really change the landscape of the Packers and their starting offense. So I think when you look at this upcoming draft later this week, the Packers offense is only going to get better. They'll probably draft 2 or 3 offensive linemen, and then they'll have a lot more competition there, a lot more depth, and maybe one of those guys comes through, becomes a starting guard, tackle, center, whichever position the Packers decide to target. And then you have the Packers offensive line being much better than they were last season, and they were one of the best pass blocking offensive lines last year. They were a little bit worse when it came to run blocking, but when Aaron Jones came back and was healthy later in the season, things went really well. And I think that's a lot to do with the talent of Aaron Jones, who is no longer here in Green Bay. But this Packers offense, in my opinion, the fact that they're entering their second year with Jordan Love leading the charge, and then they're going to be able to bolster this unit, have more depth, have more pieces to fill holes on the offensive line. I don't see how the Packers offense doesn't get better this next season.
2 or 3, that's high praise. CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud right now. Listen,
CJ Stroud
I'm not going to argue with
Love.
you. Listen, he proved all the doubters wrong, right? He started off slow, but by the time he got to the playoffs and the game slowed down for him, it was nobody playing better. And, he's young. He has a young core, cheap core. I think that he's primed to be one of those guys.
Right now, if the 49ers are the defending champions of the NFC, which they are, who's their biggest threat? Is it Green Bay? In the conference?
I think Green Bay is one of them because, I still like the Lions and what they did with DJ Reed getting beef up front. And they'll continue to probably address the cornerback position secondary. But I tell you what, Green Bay is right there. You talk about what they did in the playoffs last year, their ability to run the football, losing Aaron Jones, but then replacing with a younger, maybe better version of that, bringing A.J. Dillon back. Everybody seems to be on board there. I love what they did, bringing in McKinney for the secondary. I think they're poised to be right there with anybody.
Yeah, look, Green Bay, the model of stability, the model of success, right? The situation, we talk about these young quarterbacks and the situations they go into. How much time did we spend on Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers? Yeah. And is this going to... They did it, right? And they built a young group of pass catchers around him. They have the play caller and the head coach that they love. Arrow up for Green Bay.
Greeny, that's such an important point. When we talk about the quarterbacks in this year's draft, why not draft them and sit them? Why is that wrong?
Because they don't have Aaron Rodgers playing in front of them.
Well, yeah, people want to take advantage of the quarterback on the rookie contract, but it isn't the only way to do it, obviously, because the Packers managed to sit him all that time, just as they did with Rodgers once upon a time.
And Patrick Mahomes, and look how that worked out. My whole point is, get the quarterback. If he's not ready, it's okay. We want him good for the next 10 years, not the next 10 minutes.
People think that Drake May maybe is the player that people should do that with. Or we'll leave that there for the moment.
And so when you look at this Packers 2024 outlook, as they're talking there, they clearly see the Packers as one of those top teams in the NFC, which I think most people, most fans around the NFL see them that way. And it's hard to not see them in that light when they did what they did to the Cowboys last year in the playoffs, making it to the divisional rounds and almost beating the 49ers if we would have held on there near the end. And so considering it was such a young team last year, they got more experience. They got that playoff experience. They know what it's like to be in close games in the playoffs, which before last season, they had, no idea, most of them, what that was like whatsoever. For the 2024 outlook, I think this Packers offense is going to be just as good, if not better. My question is this defense. Will Jeff Hafley coming in take this defense to another level? That's obviously the hope, and the optimistic view is that Jeff Hafley coming in, having a new defensive coordinator here, replacing Joe Barry. The hope is, from all of us Packers fans, that somehow he turns this defense around and takes him to a top-tier level consistently. Because I think with Joe Barry, for times, there were stretches where this defense played really, really good, and then there were stretches where they just completely disappeared. Things went poorly. And of course, most defenses aren't going to always be playing at a top-tier level. Even your best defenses have bad games, and so you're not going to be perfect all the time. But it really just comes down to, I think, this year, if this Packers defense starts to click, if Jeff Hafley really gets a ton out of, gets everything out of these Packers players, these high-end players, this Packers team will be one of the best. And I even think if this Packers our defense is average, as they were last year, they're still going to compete down the stretch in the playoffs, in my opinion. And when it comes to the playoffs, it's, can you get the job done? Can you learn from your previous mistakes? Can Jordan Love, in a big game, late situation, instead of ending off like he did last season with those picks, can he instead learn from that situation and take the Packers down, win a game like that in that situation? And it really comes down to that, those big moments in the playoffs. Will the Packers be able to get it done consistently, which they did a couple times, or they got it done against the Cowboys, and they couldn't finish off the Niners. So hopefully this next season, all these things start to click. But if you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any Packers content. I will be covering the draft later this week, so stay tuned for all those videos and my reactions. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.